Yolu oyundan geçenlerin çok çok iyi bildiği Unity firmasından bir konuşmacımız var. Amerika'dan geldi. YJ Gang, Unity firmasının ürün yöneticisi. Ve oyun alanında yapay zekadan bahsettiğimizde çok önemli bir firma. Kendisini sahneye konuşmasını yapmak üzere davet edeceğim, buradaki yoğunluk bittikten sonra. Ve sizleri YJ'in konuşması ve çok birbirinden enteresan videolarıyla baş başa bırakacağım. YJ, please join me on the stage for your speech.
Okay, hi everyone. Thank you so much for your time. This is my first time visiting Istanbul, and it's really a pleasure being here, so thank you again. Today I'm here to talk about one topic, and that is accelerating creator productivity with Unity Muse. I'm going to touch on a variety of things. First, I'm going to talk about what is Unity in the first place. I'm going to talk a little bit about what we're doing with generative AI, and really our flagship generative AI product, Unity Muse. As a quick introduction, my name is YJ Gang. I am a senior technical product manager at Unity. I'm responsible for several of the AI tools that you're seeing currently out in the market with Unity, and I'm also responsible for some of the new tools that will be coming out this year in 2024. I thought it'd be nice to share some fun details about myself. My journey has been an interesting one. I am a former special education teacher, turned aspiring lawyer, turned product manager. I also like to share, a little fun fact for the esports fans here. I am a T1 esports fan. It's a gaming team that's based out in Korea. And a game that I'm currently playing is Helldivers 2. Do we have anyone playing that game by any chance? Yeah? There we go. There we go. Awesome. Now, I want to go back in time here for a moment and talk about Unity. Unity became what it is today because they simplified game development. They created the Unity engine, put it into the hands of creators who were then able to create games in a much more productive way. So it really unlocked all kinds of possibilities, whether it is gaming itself, real-time 3D more holistically, or even in the industry space, digital twins. Now, I'm here today to share how we are advancing what Unity's impact is on the world through generative AI. Introducing Unity Muse. Now, when it comes to Unity Muse, there are two key terms that I like to highlight. One is generative AI. Two is a toolbox. I'll say it one more time. Generative AI and a toolbox. Now, I'm going to slow down here for a moment and talk through this text because it may just be the most important part to understanding what Unity Muse is. So, for all the Unity users who want to accelerate productivity, regardless of skill level, with Unity Muse, our users can leverage a collection of generative AI tools to rapidly and scalably produce customizable assets in the context of their Unity game environment. Now, there are a couple key words here, regardless of skill level. This part's really important, right? Because with Unity, we want to ensure that these tools are accessible to anyone, anywhere. Rapidly, being able to rapidly create assets is what Muse is going to be all about. Scalably, being able to rapidly create assets in a scalable way for all your game needs is another key point. And then finally, customizable, making sure that these assets match the look and feel of your game is critical. In the end, I like to use this phrase, give our users AI superpowers to accelerate their productivity is what Unity Muse is all about. Now, out of this sort of toolbox, as I said, there are two key features or tools that I want to call out. One is texture, and the other is sprite. Let's start with texture. Now, textures, if you look around the room, are pretty much everywhere. There's an infinite variety of textures. And it's these textures in games that make it far more compelling, far more exciting. But one of the key user feedbacks that we have received was that the process of creating or exploring textures is slow, and it's painful. But what if in a matter of seconds, you can create textures that you can simply bring into your game? What you're seeing here is a first look at Muse texture. By simply punching in a couple keywords like rainbow-colored slime, hitting generate, you can generate rainbow-colored slime textures. Let's say you want other kinds of textures. All you have to do is write in a couple keywords. You can use sort of the pattern guidance that you're seeing on the bottom left-hand corner, hit generate, and get textures in a matter of seconds. Now, one thing I want to call out is that all the textures that you see here, they're not just images. They are PBR enabled. What that means is when you bring it into a game engine, when you bring it into Unity, when you're bringing it into your scene, it interacts with all the details, such as lighting. Now, if generating isn't enough, we also added in artistic control. Being able to make edits, being able to tweak the generated assets just to your liking, we felt like was incredibly important for this tool to be useful, and so we're really putting an emphasis on artistic control. Now, taking a look at the next slide here, here's an empty scene. It's a pretty cool scene, but the floors are empty, the walls are empty, the ceiling is empty. By simply taking the generated texture and bringing it into your scene, you have suddenly gone from an untextured wall to one that is textured. It goes by really quickly, so that's why I have it on repeat. But you can imagine the possibilities as you're building out your scene. So, in the next slide here, it showcases what you're able to do in a matter of minutes using this tool. You are going from a previously untextured scene to one that is completely textured, much more lively, much more compelling. Moving on to the next slide, I'm going to switch gears here now and talk about our next tool, and that is Muse Sprite. Now, sprites are really what makes games games, right? So they're the 2D assets that you see in games, whether it's bushes, chairs, even a chicken, right? With Muse Sprite, you are able to take the same concept that you saw with the texture tool, but simply prompt for 2D assets like, let's say, a chicken. And on the bottom left-hand corner, there's a feature called Doodle, where you can doodle the shape that you want out of the asset, in this case, the chicken. Now, there's this one interesting thing here where a user said, hey, YJ, that doesn't look like a chicken, it looks more like a dinosaur. And so we decided to take it a step further and prompt for a T-Rex chicken. So we put that in there, hit generate, and boom, the T-Rex chicken was born. Now, if that wasn't enough, we took it one step further and prompted for a rainbow-colored T-Rex chicken. And there you have it. So the takeaway here is that with this tool, you can generate something that is familiar, like a chicken, but also be inspired for other outcomes, other possibilities, like a T-Rex chicken. Moving on to the next slide, I want to show a couple demos to sort of unlock the possibilities. For the first one, I want to showcase how we were able to texture a 3D scene in under 20 minutes. Remember, the key point here is accelerating creator productivity, right? So being able to do it under 20 minutes versus the hours of work it would normally take is the key point in all of this. But I want to call out 5 key features as we're digging into the details. The 5 key features for Muse Texture are 1, generate. So as you already know, being able to create a texture with just a text or an image prompt. 2, variate. Being able to generate variations of what was already produced. 3, in paint. Draw over parts of a texture that should be corrected and then generate corrected iterations. So as an example, let's say you generated a brick wall. But in that brick wall, there's one brick that is, let's say, green. Obviously, that green brick doesn't necessarily belong there, so you can actually use the in-painting tool to doodle or draw over that key part, hit generate and correct that. There's also upscale, being able to upscale it in terms of quality, and then, of course, being able to provide a reference image. So providing a reference image to guide the shape and color of generations. So here is a more extended demo. I'm going to take off my presenter hat and wear my demo hat here and just slowly talk you through what you're seeing. So this is an empty scene, right? It's completely empty. You have it currently in the editor. And the reason why it's set up as such is we're having the scene on the left-hand side and we're having the tool on the right-hand side. And like I said, it's set up as such because we want this to be a seamless experience. We don't want you to have to go in and out of the editor or use some other platform. We want it to be fully integrated so that it's easy for our creators to use. So on the right-hand side, here I am using the texture tool. I'm generating textures, I'm editing it, I'm getting towards something that I think I like, but I'm not quite sure. And so I'm iterating and I'm iterating and I'm iterating. Eventually, after making several tweaks, you're going to see that I land on this texture, and I quite like it. So I will then take this, drag and drop, and then bring it into the scene, where suddenly I have an untextured space to one that is fully textured. Now, one thing I want to call out is that this entire time I've been thinking about it in the context of gaming. But if we have folks in the industry space here, I want to also call out the possibilities. Whether it's digital twins or other spaces that you're working in, you can sort of think about how the texture tool can be used for that purpose as well. Now, this is more of a conservative texture that you're seeing here, one that is sort of pretty straightforward, but the details matter. So here now you're seeing in painting, where you're sort of making your marks on the parts that you want to correct because you see some dots, you're hitting generate, you're regenerating it to a texture that you quite like. And again, you can make these edits until you land on, until you get towards that final textured scene as you're seeing here. Again, one thing I really want to emphasize is that this is PBR enabled. The idea is that it interacts with the lighting, it interacts with the sort of the physics of the scene, if you will, and that is really what separates it from a lot of the image generators that you're seeing today. As you can see here, we're now transitioning onto another texture. And while these are a bit more of the sort of well-known textures, there's all kinds of possibilities. Like I said, with a brick wall, instead of just a standard red brick wall, you can prompt for, let's say, a rainbow brick wall. Let's say you want to prompt for a lava texture. All possibilities are available in this tool, so long as you provide the right prompting for it. Now, one thing I want to call out is that we feel like this is currently a great fit for the early ideation, early prototyping phase. As we work towards later in the game development process or more production-ready stages of creation, we're going to look to improve the quality, improve the level of artistic control, so on and so forth. So I hope this gives you a good idea of exactly how this tool works in context. Now, I'm going to try to switch us over to the next demo. You just saw any sort of like basic or standard user trying to use a texture tool. But what if you put the tool into the hands of a professional? So I'd like to introduce you to Hugo Kostic. Hugo is a professional artist who has his own game studio. He's based in France. And what he did here was basically create an entire world using the texture tool. And he did this in 2 evenings. So basically, I want to say a total amount of 6 hours of work, including, of course, preparing all the assets. Now, Hugo said to me, hey, YJ, I can definitely improve the quality of this and make it look better. What do you think? I actually said, hey, I'd rather not do that. I'd rather showcase just how much was able to get done in a matter of just 6 hours. And the point is, again, it's about prototyping. It's about ideating. And as we make continuous improvements, it will make its way eventually later into the game development process. So pretty amazing stuff. And you can imagine that for a smaller or medium-sized team, it could really help accelerate their productivity. Now, switching gears here to the next slide, I want to showcase how you can create a 2D scene in under 20 minutes. We won't go through the whole video, but again, the idea is to help you understand the possibilities. There are 5 key features. I'll quickly go through the first 3. Generate, variate in Paint. Everyone here is pretty much an expert at that. But now we have doodle and style. So doodling is important in the sense that it can guide the shape of the assets that you're creating. You saw that with the chicken. But the other feature is especially important, style. So when it comes to creating assets, it's one thing to create any asset, but you want to make sure the asset matches the look and feel of your game. So there's what we call a style trainer, where you can actually feed the AI model a couple images based on the game assets that you currently have. And from that point onward, the sprite tool will generate all assets based on the style that you provided. I think that's a really, really important part in making sure that the assets that is being used are actually helpful, right? So, taking a look at this demo, we're going to try to create a farm scene, if you will. So you're seeing me generate a scene for a barn. I'm going to just generate, try to land on one that I feel like is quite compelling, and like I previously showed, simply drag and drop them into your scene. From there, like any good barn, you're going to have a horse, right? So I'm using the doodle feature to guide the shape of the horse that I want. I'm going to generate the horse, land on a horse that I quite like, and eventually drag and drop it into the scene. And you'll see me just continuously building this out, whether it is trying to create a barrel, as you're about to see here, or I think we also even added a potion. All the possibilities are really there. It's only limited by the level of how creative you want to get. So I hope it sort of gives you a sense of exactly how this tool can work, and I hope that you can sort of see it in the context of your workflow. Okay, moving on to the next slide here. Now, I want to touch on a topic that I think is very, very important. It's personally very near and dear to me, and that is responsible AI. For folks who know Spider-Man, there's this very, very famous, I see some smiles, that's great. There's this very, very famous quote where Spider-Man's uncle tells Spider-Man, hey, with great power comes great responsibility. And I think when it comes to generative AI, this is something that a lot of folks in the industry space should keep in mind. When it came to building our tools, we made it a point to actually build our models and source our data from scratch. A lot of the tools that you're seeing out there currently in the market don't necessarily use models or source their data responsibly, or are necessarily built from scratch. And that's where we feel like it can get a little dangerous for our creators. What I mean by that is you're not just using these assets for any other purpose, you're using these assets to publish games, right? So the closer you get to publishing it on a platform like Steam, the more at risk you are if you're using a model that has scraped data from the internet. So that's why we made it a point to build the models from scratch, to source our own data based on the data that we own, and even be very public about how we went about doing it. So the screenshot that you're seeing here is a technical blog that we posted when we launched. For better or for worse, we kind of decided to go and put out the secret sauce and share exactly how we built that model. The reason why we did that was because we're sort of trying to make sure we're walking the talk here. And there's no better way than just being fully transparent. So if you go onto this page, you'll see exactly how the model was built, how we went about sourcing our data, and that's the standard that we want to challenge ourselves with. Moving on to the next slide here. I want to show a little teaser. This isn't anything that has necessarily been shared in any other presentation yet, but this information is public in some respects, and so I wanted to give this teaser for this special audience, and that is 3D. So 3D is something that our users have been asking for since day one. And I see a lot of head nods, so that's lovely. It sounds like we're on target, and that's really wonderful to hear. With 3D, it takes a lot of, let's say, research. So we spent the past year, I personally am working very closely with our researchers, trying to understand how we can go about bringing 3D asset creation, 3D texturing to our users. If you go online, you'll see that we recently published a paper that talks about 3D asset creation. It was done by my incredible research colleagues. And what you're seeing here, I won't get into the details, you can read it for yourself, but this is really cutting edge stuff. This is first to market. This is something that is already going to really influence the direction that a lot of companies and a lot of creators out there are going to take. Essentially, this is unlocking the first step for us, which is 3D texturing. So, what are the possibilities? Well, if you look on the left-hand side here, you see a treasure chest and a shield. The idea is that with this research, we can productize it and bring it into Muse Texture and take it to the next level. Internally, I like to call it Muse Texture 2.0 because you're going into the 3D space and that's going to unlock all kinds of possibilities for our creators. So really exciting stuff. And the point that I'm trying to make here is that when it comes to what our users want, I personally am making it a point to really listen to what they want and how they want it done. And I touched on those topics, right? We talked about 3D, we talked about responsible AI. All of this is coming together as we're making progress. So to recap, what can Muse do for you? Well, there's a couple key points here. One, it can help create infinite variations in a matter of seconds. Two, it gives you artistic control. In other words, make AI work for you using more than just words. Three, work in the scene. Context is everything. This is a key point that came from our users as well. They want to work in context. Otherwise, it's not the most productive. Next, customize creations. Match the style of your game. And finally, give yourself AI superpowers. That is Unity Muse, and we are just getting started. Thank you.